Hello everyone and welcome back to another exciting episode of Boyographic, the show in which I, Matt the Gameboy, take you through the highs and lows of the Game Boy library, one card at a time. This week we'll be looking at a Japanese exclusive. It's Amida. When it comes to Japan-only puzzle games, you have to ask yourself, why wasn't this game released worldwide? In the words of Dylan Cuthbert, creator of X, and a man behind Starwing, he said that his 3D tank title never made it to the States because it didn't fit in with the puzzle game mold that Nintendo of America wanted. Now, while the Game Boy obviously saw many non-puzzle titles released in its lifespan, you have to wonder why Amida was left in its homeland. Well, it could be that Sofix, the developer behind Amida, couldn't find or didn't want to find a publisher for the title, as it seems to be their only output on the Nintendo Game Boy. But as this game is surprisingly already translated into English, I'd imagine it was probably a little closer to home. You see, Soreyuke Amida-Kun, to give the card its full title, is a pretty difficult game. Oh sure, the premise is simple enough. You guide Amida, a puffy ball-like character that looks like the love child of Kirby and Dizzy, down ladders to its home. Sounds pretty easy, right? Well, to start with, yes, it is. You wait for Amida to be sat on top of the path you wanted to take, and hit start to send the puffy ball a-rolling. You, the player, control a straight block that can be placed with A and removed with B. Not the most exciting of premises, I know, but avoiding the various skulls that instantly kill Amida and technically planning the most efficient route so quickly involves a lot of skill. Get it wrong 3 times and it's game over. No continues, no thank you, just straight back to the title screen. Well, that is unless you make it past the first 10 rounds onto the second stage, because that's right, after every 10 rounds there's a password system to skip ahead to the next stage. And without the simple option to continue, you're going to be entering them a lot if you ever plan on beating this game. Which brings me to another issue. If you make a mistake in this password, you can't edit your entry. You can only spam the right button to reject the entire password and start all over again. Seeing as the game requires you to manually press up and down to select a letter, this can be infuriating if you spell the password right into the 4th letter and need to start again. Niggles with the continue system aside. The game's biggest problem that it doesn't really control very well. As I previously mentioned, you control a block with a face on it that you have to get around the course using the D-pad and plant yourself down with the A button. Once Amida has walked over with you, you have to quickly press B and get into the next position. However, this is easier said than done. While you really need to have a quick trigger finger to get into position, press A and then repeat until Amida gets home. Some of the game's obstacles cannot be moved over at all, meaning you need to move around them. Sounds like a funny thing to pick a hole in, I know, but clunky controls in a game that requires speed is probably why we never saw this game in the West. As yes, the graphics may be limited, the music incredibly repetitive and the controls frustrating, but at its core, Amida had some good ideas. After every 10 stages, a short animation of Amida in a block plays, and a new gameplay mechanic is introduced, that not only mixes up the game in an interesting way, but brings a whole new level of strategy into play. These new mechanics include a boomerang block, a black arrow tile that sends the player back the way they just came, a teleporter that warps Amida across the map, sometimes into pleasant situations, and sometimes into ones that make you want to tear your hair out. The final 10 stages also introduce a block that speeds Amida up, causing it to move at double time and can really overwhelm the player, as all of a sudden it doesn't really matter about the starting on the right path, as if you don't, you're probably gonna die. You can also increase Amida's speed at the start of each new game, with 1 being the fastest and 8 being the slowest in default setting. Seriously, if you can play this game on its fastest speed through to the end, you must have some serious mental fortitude, as I couldn't beat the game on its base difficulty. But my biggest problem with Amida, other than its controls and elements of chance in your starting location, is that hitting pause, which for some weird reason is on the select button, the screen gets covered up by bricks so you can't see the course. I'd love a little time to plan my route, but the game won't give it to me. Instead, I often start off on the wrong path, cursing my luck that I couldn't click retry or even speed Amida up to his impending doom. If this game had a quick death option on a pause screen that allowed you to check the puzzle over, I think the game would be instantly more accessible. In short, there are definitely the workings of a solid game in Amida. I mean, we saw the ladder puzzles and the mini-games in various other titles across the 8-bit era, so I guess it makes sense to make a full title based around them too. But be warned, unless you're a hardcore puzzle fan, this is probably best observed from the comfort of YouTube, as its lackluster controls, poor ability to allow the player to progress, unlimited visuals will leave you wishing the title had been made with a little bit more care. I'm also just going to say a quick thank you to my good friends Emily and Matteo, Somethings Labs, who brought me this cart randomly with a few more Japanese titles that you will see in the future Boyographic episodes for my birthday from their trip to Japan. Thank you guys, this one may not be great, but the others surely will be. And that brings us to the end of another Boyographic, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have, please subscribe and share the channel with some other people you think may be interested in it. That's how the channel gets around. If you have really liked this video, why not check out more of our Boyographic series in which I, Matt, the Game Boy, will take you through the highs and lows of the Game Boy library one card at a time, looking at some of the best, some of the worst, and some of the weirdest examples of games on the Nintendo Game Boy. You can check out our Boy Curious videos where I look at bootlegs and oddities for the system and some unlicensed carts in between. You can also check out our All the Glory videos as well, which are long play videos where I cut out the deaths, leaving you guys with none of the faff, but all of the glory. Until next week, Game Boys and girls, it's goodbye from me. Game on.